If there's an upside to disaster, we'll find it this week as we create a molding makeover to help this family recover from flooded floors.
It gave us a jump start that we needed to go ahead.
What do you think so far?
Unbelievable.
Chris and Lauren Pippin share this neat little cul-de-sac home with their daughters Charlotte Ann and Chloe. They've lived here for 12 years, but just a few months ago, they had a minor disaster.
We received 7 to 9 inches of rain in less than 2 to 3 hours, I believe.
We had a landscape timber come down the ditch that night and it blocked the drain, and that's what we believe to be what caused the flooding. It was about 1/8 of an inch deep inside the house. It was just enough to ruin all the flooring in the house. And what was supposed to be a bad situation, God actually turned that around for our good. It gave us a jump start that we needed to go ahead, get new floors.
Motivation.
Yes, something that we could fight for.
A little push, yes. These are the new floors that were just put in.
As you can see in the dining room, some of the baseboards are pulled off. We had a little water damage during the flood, and we pulled it off just to make sure that the water didn't get into the sheetrock. As you can tell in the dining room,
There's no molding up top.
No crown molding.
You know, that is a colonial type of trim. I'll tell you what, that's actually a great trim to use. The colonial, that's a 2 1/4 colonial. We could use that, leave that there, do that doorway, redo this. We could even case that door. And then I notice on each side of this window, there's no trim. So we can make it look like this. So we
Make
can
it match the other
Yeah, we can tile
windows.
that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would.
Speaking of not matching, as you can see, the dining room is, the walls are completely different than the living room.
Oh,
There's
the old
paneling.
painted
Yes.
paneling.
So we painted over it. So we're not sure if there's something else we can do to the paneling or just recommend painting again.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that can be done. One of the other things I was going to ask you about, anytime we've done a lot of renovation in rooms like this that flow together, that's a great wall for an accent wall. Would you be up to something like that?
I'm up for anything.
Okay.
I'll try it.
All right. These guys seem anxious to get started, so when I return with Chelsea and our handyman Bear, we hit the ground running. Okay, you guys ready?
We're ready.
Get started in here, make a little mess here and there.
Lauren, I wanted to show you a few things if you want to come over here.
So we got to figure out where to put all this stuff.
So I was thinking, you know, the molding's kind of a necessity, but that maybe we could do a fun accent wall for a little fun interest.
Oh, that'd be nice, yeah.
When Chelsea mentioned the accent wall, Chris immediately went, oh, you're speaking her love language.
I did a project on my web show, so I was going to show you that.
I love that.
And so maybe we can paint it a complementary color or do like a weathered stain on it to differentiate it from whatever color you're going to paint the rest
They
of the
look
walls.
really good.
Okay, I like it.
Now that's the life right there, isn't it?
That is the life.
Gee whiz, here, don't let us bother you there, buddy. Now Berkeley, he's got it made.
So Berkeley runs our house.
He's lazy.
Berkeley is Berkeley, and he does what he wants.
That is one of the laziest dogs I've ever seen.
While we continue moving furniture and covering floors, Chelsea and Lauren work out some of the details.
So this is the paint color that you guys picked out?
We wanted
Nice
to
and-
keep it neutral.
Yeah, that's to say very neutral.
Since
And
we're painting both rooms.
okay, perfect. You think like a gray stain would complement that for the wall?
I think so.
Or a white, we could whitewash it.
Either.
You're up for anything?
I'm up for anything.
Danny, this sure is a lot of cover up for paint and trim.
Well, Lauren said she's painted with you before, and you get on that roller and everything splatter goes everywhere.
Chris does not like to paint. When it comes to painting, I'm the one who paints around the house.
Really, the reason we're trying to cover that up, cover these doorways up, because we've got a lot of sanding to do on top of this paneling where they put the splatter finish on it. So we have sanding poles for everybody, 80 grit sandpaper. So we'll knock all of that off. I would imagine it'll make quite a mess. But you know, one of the advantages, not only will it look more like the dining room and the rest of the house, we'll also be able to get rid of these corner pieces and the inside corner pieces as well, and then make that look like a traditional outside and inside corner with a little bit of drywall mud. But if you can score it so that we don't end up with a lot more damage on all of that, then I'll come back and knock off that piece for you.
Absolutely.
Here are 5 tips to remember next time you're going to paint the room. First, use a paint roller with an extension handle. The roller just screws right onto the handle, and this particular one extends from about 4 feet to 7 feet and locks anywhere in between, so you can reach any surface in your house without having to use a ladder. Next, paint from a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, and use a roller screen. Do not use a roller tray. They're flimsy, they spill paint, you have to fill them up all the time. This is a much better way. You can roll the paint right off the screen into the bucket. Also, use canvas drop cloths, not plastic. Plastic does not absorb paint and it becomes slippery, and if you step in the paint, you can track it all over the house. Use canvas. They absorb the paint and they last forever. Next, tint the primer toward the finished color, which means if you're going to paint the wall blue, tint the primer a little bit blue so it covers much better. Next, record the paint color for future reference. In this case, you just write it on a piece of tape, the paint name and color on the back of the switch plate in the room. Then the next time you need to buy paint, you know exactly which color to get.
This week we're giving Chris and Lauren's living room and dining room a molding makeover, and the old has to go before we can start with the new. Right, you know this paneling is a lot more durable than drywall, but when you're pulling any kind of trim off, it's good to have something like this trim puller and really protect the wall. Just put them in behind it, but I still like to take a piece of plywood just like that, and luckily the new baseboard's higher than that, so that paint line won't even bother us, so we can just go right on around the room here. In addition to the baseboards and corner molding, we're also removing all of the case molding that doesn't match, so we can all stay busy. Now that we've removed all of the trim we plan on removing, it's time for the messy part of this project, and that's sanding all of the wood paneling walls. Chris and Lauren man the sanding poles while Chelsea whites down the surface behind them. As soon as sanding is complete on each wall, I begin applying drywall joint compound to fill in the paneling grooves. While the joint compound dries, we can get started on the trim. I want to put a piece of thin plywood in here, and that'll make it more durable, and it will look like what I want to do on this cased opening going into the kitchen, where we have a wider piece that will attach just like that going down.
That is cool.
It's gonna look a lot better.
Yeah.
And it'll look just like the big opening, the front door, the other opening, and the window all being tied in together.
That is neat.
So this will be our first step, so we better crank that table saw up.
Sounds good.
We're using the table saw to rip down the 1/8-inch plywood or luan to the width of the jambs in each opening. Then we tack those in place to finish out our first day. Chris and Lauren keep the work going into the evening. They painted all of the walls in the dining room except the accent wall, which will be covered later with more strips of luan to look like a rustic siding. But that's where we need to start with the crown molding.
When Danny put up the crown molding, it was kind of like, nail gun, look at there. And then someone said, wait, I think it's upside down.
Golly, I thought I just looked at it. Darn. I'm not going to comment.
Because he does this for a living and then had to take it all down. So yes, it makes me feel better as a homeowner that it's not just me.
So after a minor adjustment, so what? I had to take one down. We're ready to keep nailing.
When they first handed me the nail gun, it's intimidating.
Okay, you ready?
I've never used one, so I wasn't sure kind of where it comes out or, you know, how hard you have to push, but all fingers. Still here.
How about that? We're coping the joints for this molding, and that's something that Chelsea has never done, so she wants to learn.
I've coped with working with you.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so here's what you're doing without cutting any fingers. You're just following that white line, and you want it to see how I'm sloping it back like that?
So you're cutting at like a 45 or?
Yeah, 40 or more if you can. I mean, the more the better. Then you just follow the white line.
Oh, you follow all the turns and everything.
And see how I'm...
You're like carving out the back side of it for
Correct.
the...
Okay. Cutting out the meat. That's what we're doing.
Cutting out the meat.
Cutting out the meat
And
of the
now
board.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
What's the advantage to this over using the saw to do all that?
Just give you a little more flexibility to work in those corners.
Yeah, okay.
When Chelsea takes over with the coping saw, she gets the hang of it pretty quickly, but the real test is how well does it fit. Whoa! Oh boy, makes me kind of tear up a little bit.
It's
That is beautiful.
beginner's
Your
luck.
first coping joint?
I know, it's perfect.
Really? That
I
is
learned from the
beautiful.
best.
I'm gonna need to get a picture of that.
Some power tools just haven't made the leap to cordless simply because they require too much power. And when I think about those tools, I think of a belt sander. Well, Rigid has come out with their Gen 5X series. It's not only changed my mind, but it's pretty much revolutionized belt sanders. It operates on an 18-volt lithium-ion battery, which, by the way, is interchangeable with their other Rigid cordless tools. Also, it's got a brushless motor, meaning that it is really efficient. Now, with most belt sanders, you just put your little sanding belt here on, press the trigger, and you're ready to go. But what if you're working on different surfaces and you need to control the speed of the sanding pad there? What you do is it's got a variable speed knob right here. I can turn it up or turn it down just depending upon the surface I'm working on. Also, if I'm working on a vertical surface or need to work over my head, I can adjust the pommel here to get more ergonomically correct for holding it. So now my belt sander can go wherever I go.
We're renovating the living and dining rooms of Chris and Lauren's house by adding new moldings and disguising the old painted paneling in the living room with layer after layer of drywall joint compound. Chris has to work today, so Chelsea, Lauren, and I are installing the new case molding that'll dress up these rooms and make the look more consistent. And then, Lauren, what we do is we call worming it. You want to make sure it's smooth, level right there and flush. Make sure it's flush, and then let her nail it, and then keep worming it down as you need to. There you go. Don't you like the way that makes your hair just flush?
So we'll just butt our baseboard right up to it.
Uh-huh.
Sweet. All right, so we're gonna leave a reveal here. And the rest of the case molding has been flush, but we're gonna leave a little reveal at the top. All right, got it.
Lauren is so gung-ho about trying anything on this project, even if she had to get up on her tiptoes. Tiptoes, get up, tiptoes.
No short jokes here.
Now for the base molding. Can you bow it there, bow it, get it in there, there you go. Okay, now what we're gonna do is put a couple spacers under there.
Okay.
So put that right under there. Here's you a couple, I'll put some in the middle. This just will get it up off the ground just a little bit. And that way, because we're putting the big quarter-inch, the quarter-round shoe molding on.
Right.
So
Okay.
that'll cover all of that up. Should work really well. Normally, we would never set up a saw inside a finished house and do a lot of cutting because of all the sawdust. But when it's raining this hard, then even setting up a tent would not keep that rain off of our power tools, and that's never a good idea.
So it's completely different feeling of when we get a lot of rain now versus, before we flooded.
Now it's time to start work on that accent wall.
We're taking sheets of Luan plywood and stripping it down into 8-inch widths so that we can hang it up on the wall and make it look like the siding of an old house.
All right, that should be all you need to do, that entire wall. Now, Lauren, you've been making a few decisions. One more decision to be made is which side you want to show. Now, on a feature wall like this, anything goes. So this is actually the back side of this Luan plywood that we ripped. That's a much more finished side.
I like the
back
bigger
side?
look, yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll turn
It's
over
pretty
here.
obvious to tell the difference, so you can make sure you're consistent.
Just wipe it down just real lightly to get the dust off of it.
You're gonna take your brush and brush the stain on first.
Okay.
And then take a rag and wipe it off.
Would you start from
Yeah, you wanna
one
start on
end?
one end. You wanna do long strokes rather than short little strokes. And then you'll wipe it off with the rag to get the excess stain off.
You see that look? That's what you want.
Okay.
So you just keep, and you rub it back and forth. You can do
and
anything
you
on
want
this.
to
You
make
can-
sure you get the stain
Yeah,
in those.
yeah, you want to get, yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Just, this is hand rubbed perfection.
As soon as we started to put it on, it was giving the board life. I mean, I kind of saw its potential. So I was excited.
She's got this. Let's go.
All right.
The homework list was a lot overwhelming when I first looked at it.
Homework is code for the chores we leave for homeowners when we leave each afternoon.
We had a really late night finishing and an early morning, so no one was allowed to talk to him this morning.
It's almost unbearable again, but you can only do one thing at a time. So you just do what you can do.
While Chris, Bear, and I continue sanding joint compound off of the paneling, Chelsea and Lauren begin installing their accent wall boards.
So if we can just set it up against the wall, we get it all the way to the corner. And then I'll mark the outlet and then get you to mark. We have all of our studs marked already.
So these lines.
And we're gonna want all of our boards to end on the studs.
Okay.
So we'll wanna mark that and we'll cut those few inches off of this piece. All right, now we just need to get our jigsaw and we'll make our cuts.
Okay.
And then not only do we want our seams to end on the studs, but that's also where we want to put our nails.
Okay.
Chelsea and Lauren started tackling this wood wall, and they never looked back.
Have you ever met someone and felt like you've known them for a long time? That's what it was like to work with Lauren. After about an hour, we were like old besties just hanging out, working on our house. Okay, the last piece. All right, Lauren, what do you think?
I think it looks really, really
It
good.
looks so rich.
It does.
I think we did a good job.
I think we did.
What do you think?
Looks good. It's
What do you
really
think?
good.
If you say too much about it, she's gonna want to do all the walls.
Right.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
let's just say, it's all right.
We'll go back to work.
It's all
How's
right.
that sound?
It looked fantastic.
I don't think she's ever used a nail gun before, and to see her, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool to see her with a nail gun. Kind of sexy.
Well, now that I've done it, that I know that I can create that look myself, that I'm capable of building an accent wall.
At least our project's finished. But it's not really.
They still have to apply the matte sealer to the wall, and once our sanding is complete, there's more painting to be done. But the end is definitely in sight. Chris and Lauren have a beautiful home, but thanks to some unfortunate choices by previous owners and an even more unfortunate flood in recent days, their main living area needed some help. They got things rolling with new floors, but it was still obvious that the living room was painted paneling and some moldings were mismatched while others were missing. Now the floors can really shine because the crisp, clean moldings that frame them all match with consistent margins and finishes. Plus, we added crown molding to the dining area so it matches the living room. The paneling is still there, but thanks to a lot of elbow grease and a few coats of paint, you would never know it. In fact, Chris and Lauren were so inspired that they decided to even paint their fireplace. Plus, the accent wall that Chelsea and Lauren put together creates the warm, rustic focal point that Lauren wanted to greet her guest.
Yeah, I would say we took a negative situation that happened with our house flooded, and instead of just being down in the dumps about it, it's kind of like, okay, what can we do? Let's go ahead and get new floors that we've always talked about, and then let's see how we can make our house better. The favorite thing that we've done in the house this week, I would say, would be the accent wall, just because to me, it's my taste, and it gives it a focal point whenever you enter the house.
And I would have to say my favorite thing would be the trim. Is great, but I would have to go with blocking the paneling out, completely mudding that. We've looked at that for what, 12 years, 13 years?
We didn't think we really that there was anything we could do with it. We just paint over it.
So it's cool. It's cool to see that going.
I think having the trim all matching, finished, around the windows trimmed out, around the entryway trimmed out, it gives it a finished look. Instead of coming into a house and feeling like it was always half done or never fully completed, it feels complete.
Isn't it great when something really bad turns into something really good? It's exactly what happened to Chris and Lauren. Just a few months ago, water ran into their house, messed up their floor, some of their furniture, but you know what? They persevered and they replaced all of the flooring themselves, and then were very patient until we were able to help them tie all of the molding together. And then the wood accent wall, well, that was just icing on the cake. They did a lot of the painting, even working until 2 o'clock in the morning one night. They are some hard workers, and we really had a lot of fun working with them. Hey, I hope you were able to pick up a few things you can use at your house. If not, tune in next week here on Today's Homeowner. I'm Danny Lipford. We'll see you then.